ó sì gbé fún ìrànwọ́ mi. Wálé dáadáa kì í ṣàmọ́. Ọmọ lọ́tí ọ̀tá. Wálé dáadáa dìgbù. MC olórí gbígbé. Ó lè ṣe ìrànwọ́. Àgbẹ̀sọ̀ wà lọ́dọ̀ bí ìfọ̀yà kò sí. Ebi ṣàmọ́. Ògúnlùyí family. Akúlẹ̀dẹ̀ màmá tó lè lé ọgbọ́n. Àdúrà ó yẹ ṣe ìrànwọ́. Àgbẹ̀sọ̀ wà lọ́dọ̀ bí ìfọ̀yà ó ní wọlé 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 nísinsìnyí. Your big ẹ̀wà ògo rẹ̀ ń pè ọ́ pé máa bọ̀. Wọlé 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 nísinsìnyí. Ẹ̀wà ògo rẹ̀ ń pè ọ́ pé máa bọ̀. Ẹbí ládì bọ̀. Wọlé 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 nísinsìnyí. Ọmọ náà tí àtàjọ ti yẹ. Ẹ̀wà ògo rẹ̀ ń pè ọ́ pé máa bọ̀. Wọlé 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 nísinsìnyí. Agbẹ́gẹ́dẹ́. Ògo rẹ̀ ń pè ọ́ pé máa bọ̀. Ó sọ pé I will never be ungrateful to you, Lord. I will never be ungrateful to you, Lord. I will never be your peace. Yeah, I will never be nítorí pé ẹ dá wá sí la ṣe mọ pé wá lójú. I will never be your. I will never be ungrateful to you, Lord. Daddy, I will never be your. I will never be ungrateful to you, Lord. I will never be. Oseni, bàbá mi Oseni ló náwó lọ́wọ́, mo kí ẹ Oseni. I will never be your peace. I will never be. Inshallah. Aṣíwájú, I will never be ungrateful to you, Lord. Canada. I will never be ungrateful to you, Lord. Say, I will never be ungrateful to you, Lord. Canada, I will never be ungrateful to you, Lord. I will never be ungrateful to you, Lord. I will never be Èmi tó dẹ́yà láì mọ̀rẹ́ sọ́bẹ̀. Èmi tó dẹ́yà láì mọ̀rẹ́ o. Èrò tájú balẹ̀ ní gbogbo ìkọ̀ra orílẹ̀. Tájú jí Sunday Taiwo aláṣẹ Bethel aluminium. Ṣàkọ̀tù ní gbogbo ìjọba kingdom ní ti ilé tó kó. Èmi kọjá ya láì mọ̀rẹ́ o. Ọ̀tún ní gbogbo olúwo kingdom mọ́ kí ẹ dáadáa. Wálé dáadáa, èmi kọjá ya láì mọ̀rẹ́ MC. Èmi kọjá ya láì mọ̀rẹ́. Wálé èmi kọjá ya, èmi kọjá ya, èmi kọjá ya. Everybody, I will never. má jà bàdáyé. Fún wa lọ́mọ tó gbẹ̀yìn. Fún wa lọ́mọ tó gbẹ̀yìn. Bẹ́ẹ̀ tẹ́ ṣe. Fún wa lọ́mọ tó gbẹ̀yìn bíi wálé. Wálé wà lọ́tà mi, ọmọ Ògúnlùyì, olórí ẹbí. Ọmọ létí Mrs. Lapis, Agboola, olówó Ayámisí, aya Ògúnlùyì tó rẹlẹ́ o. Èrò tájọ́ ra síwájú, ṣáláṣálá, ọmọ Ògúnlùyì, tímọ́tímọ́ ṣeun, ọmọ Ṣàngóbì, Tájù Babátúndé, ọmọ Ògúnlùyì, gbogbo Liverpool collection kò kí ẹ. Èrò bá mi tọ́jú èjì rẹ̀, aláìsàn kò wíníwíní lójú orogún, táyé lọ́dún wà ti kẹ́kẹ́, àtikú lédè màmá tó rí ilé ogún. Lẹ́kàn ọba kejì adúgbò. Ọba lọ́pẹ̀ adúgbò. Èrò tájú yá mi bọ́. Tímọ́tímọ́ ṣọlá. Yọmí bọ́. Sábà gbóhùn lẹ́nu mi o. Yọmí. Tájú bàbá ọjà tí mo kọ́kọ́ ní. Èjì rẹ̀ ọba kejì àdúgbò. Ọba lókè àdúgbò. Akáyìndé gbẹ̀gbọ́n ọmọ rẹ̀ Ògúnlùyì mo kí yẹn ẹlẹ́. Ọba kejì àdúgbò. Ọba lókè àdúgbò. Májà bàláyé. Gẹ́gẹ́ bí aláìrí sí láyé. Yókìs májà bàláyé. Gẹ́gẹ́ bí aláìrí sí láyé. Fún wa lọ́mọ tó gbẹ̀yìn. Bẹ́ẹ̀ tẹ́ ń ṣe. Fún wa lọ́mọ tó gbẹ̀yìn. Bẹ́ẹ̀ tẹ́ ń ṣe. Òní ni 27th of June 2025. Abẹ́òkúta Sports Club làwọn yìí tàbí ṣeré mísọ̀yìn ojú kọ̀rìkọ̀rì. Òní láyẹyẹ yìí kẹ́yìn fún màmá tó rẹ̀ lẹ́. Let Mrs. Gladys Agboola, olówó Ayámisí, aya Ògúnlùyì tó rẹ̀ lẹ́ ọdún. Àní bí mo bá lọ́wọ́, bí mo bá lọ́wọ́, má fi lè gbà ara mi o. Má jẹun tó dáa, má wọṣọ tó dáa, má gbádùn ara mi, má ṣe fàájì dọ́gba. Bóyá lọ́la, bóyá lọ́la, òwe lè bẹ̀rẹ̀ jìjì. Ọlọ́jọ́ kájọ́, ọlọ́yọ̀ kájọ́, ẹ̀dàgbà ilé àti sùn. Èrò tájú ọlárẹ̀wájú. Ọlárẹ̀wájú Sànyà Olú. Ọlárẹ̀ tó rẹ̀ wájú kò ní padà sẹ́yìn. Ọlárẹ̀ ọlọ́run ọba. Bí mo bá lówó, bí mo bá lówó, má fi lè gbà ara mi o. Má jẹun ọkọ̀ bọ́lá ti tó. Honorable Ọlárẹ̀wájú ọkọ̀ bọ́lá ti tó mi o ọkọ̀ rángẹ́lì tó ń gbénu wọ̀nyé Ọlárẹ̀wájú owó bàbá tún mi ṣe owó bàbá fi káyọ̀ mi mo kí ẹ dandan Honorable àwọn wálé wà láta olórí ẹbí ọmọ rògbòlù gbogbo ojúkẹ́ connection akọ́rí kan dá ọ̀dẹ̀lẹ̀ owó ẹ̀rí ẹ̀dá. MC Koye tájú kan ìpèrè ìjọ ọdún ṣẹ́gun ràgà ṣẹ́gun. Honorable àmì tájú ojú wọn lápẹ́ gbogbo lọ́dọ̀ sísì mọ́mí jù wọn mọ́mí jù bẹ́ẹ̀ àwọn ẹrù ké àní akọrí kan dá ọ̀dàlẹ̀ òun ẹ̀rí ẹ̀dá bàbá dánmọ́ láńké àwọn fi yín lọ́kẹ̀rù lórí kan bàbá dánmọ́ láńké àwọn fi yín lọ́kẹ̀rù lórí kan. Honorable Ọlárẹ̀wájú àwọn wọlé wà látàmì ọmọ rẹ̀ òkúlu yìí ọkọ̀. Sachi olùdarí ẹ̀bùn ọmọ dada tó lè lé ogún. Àwọn bàbára gbẹ́mọ́, bàbá ìkẹ́bọ̀, bàbá láre mọ́jú. Ọkọ̀ ìyọ̀ Olùṣèyí ọmọ dàgbà. Àdìsá ọ̀nà àgbàdé ọmọ mi ìwọ̀n lọ́pẹ́ ẹ̀kẹ́lẹ́ láì máa jẹ ojú mo ti wá nígbà ṣe. What shall we do today? Olùṣèyí ọmọ bàbá òbí tí yóò yóò ní. Àkúndéde bàbá tó lè lé ògbó ẹni tí ó ní mi. Ẹni tí ó ní mi. Ẹni tí ó ní mi. Ọgbẹ́ bí bàbá ẹni tí ó ní mi. Yorùbá mi tọ́tù ìgbàlọ́ ọgbà medical connection tọ́tù ìjọba ọgbà medical connection ayabate mi tọ́pẹ́ àgbẹ̀lẹ̀kọ̀ ọgbà medical connection tọ́tù ìlànà ìdílé. Mo fi yẹn dáadáa, sọ́tún tí o ti di. Ọlọ́dàdà ṣé ṣáájú Nicholas Adébáyọ̀ ọmọ dáadáa ẹni tí ó ṣètì tọ́pẹ́ ẹni tí ó Ọba tí wọ́n lé lọ́sọ̀ ní love knock knock baby come to me for the love your see and I see so one of the
Hello. All right. Hello, test the microphone. 1, 2, check. Hello. All right, thank you very much. Ubix Band. That's just the tip of the iceberg of what to expect in terms of musicals here today. We say, worthy is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb. Thank you very much indeed. Today we are gathered for the celebration of a life well spent by her father, a grandfather, a wonderful and dutiful husband, and most importantly, a God-fearing man. One that you can call a professional par excellence in his call to duty and his career. And when you talk about the history of the media stations here in Ogun State, this man actually proved his mettle. Having come thus far from the WNTV, WNBC, and one of the pioneering staff of those who formed our own broadcasting network in Ogun State, the Ogun State Broadcasting Corporation, and later one of the iconic 7 to midwife the Ogun State Television, and rose through the ranks to retire as a general manager in that wonderful media outfit. We celebrate the life of our own Chief Sir Olujare Ebo Dada. And what the life he lived here on planet Earth, he touched so many lives in the course of his professional duties, and that's why we must give it up to the management of the Ogun State Broadcasting Corporation and that of the Ogun State Television. Retiring from OGTV as a general manager, he went on to be appointed as the chairman board of directors of Ogun State Broadcasting Corporation. And therefore today, many of the media icons and professionals are here to say thank you for midwifing Ogun State Broadcasting Corporation and that of the Ogun State Television. We equally want to thank all friends, colleagues, church members, and those who came across the path of the late broadcast journalist that we celebrate today for turning out in your large numbers to be part of a worthy celebration of a life well spent. Time will not permit us to mention us by name, one by one. But I must say that we recognize all those who worked with him while on earth. We celebrate in a wonderful way our own Basharu Festus Kehinde, otherwise known as the GO. We thank you so much for that meritorious service to Ogun State Television and having retired as the general manager there as well. How are we going to talk about OGTV and those that late Jare Dada mentored without mentioning our own Professor Jendele Ungbo? Jendele was one of the reporters in OGTV under the tutelage and mentorship of late Chief Olujare Dada, and is here to also celebrate him for giving him that wonderful path in the choice of his professional career. We want to also say a very big thank you to distinguished members of Abeokuta Sports Club. Jare Dada served meritoriously, and indeed you are here to also say whether you have departed, we're here to indeed celebrate the beautiful achievements that you've made and contributions thus far. We also want to say a very big thank you to all the professionals from the media world that are here today. Retired permanent secretaries in the Ogun State Civil Service that are here, members of the Ogun State Executive Councils, honorable commissioners, special advisors, thank you very, very much indeed. Today we celebrate a man who lived an exemplary life. Today we celebrate a husband very, very loving while on earth. Today we celebrate a father very loving to all his children. And today we celebrate one who never toyed in his professional career. He ensured that any assignment given to him is always creating what we call the foundation that others will build on. Today, when you talk about the program Meet the Press, Jare Dada started this program, anchored it, and passed the baton to many others. You remember the late Peter Okodua, you remember the late Uncle Bade, Toye Gbadebo. All of these touched that program and indeed made it beautifully well over the years on airwaves. This man actually touched so many lives, like I said, a beautiful community leader par excellence, and no wonder he earned a chieftaincy title to show that his meritorious service was indeed very, very recognized. And so, today, as we are here to indeed celebrate him, for those who were at the wake-up yesterday, those who attended the funeral service, and those who are here to be part of the reception, we say thank you very, very much indeed. One thing about burials is this: no matter who you are, young or old, male or female, death is always a leveler, because one day it will come calling. The only thing we don't know is when, where, and how it will happen. But we know that one day we will all answer to that call. But most importantly, we must realize, how have we lived a life? Will it be a life that will be celebrated? Will it be a life that many will turn out to say, yes, while on earth, he or she contributed in one way or the other in affecting my lives, the community, the society, the professional life in a positive manner. And that's why from different angles and spheres of life, we have come to pay our own tribute. We have come to celebrate an icon. We have come to say thank you, Sir Chief Olujare Ebundada, for a beautiful life you lived and for touching so many lives positively. One more time, we say thank you to every one of us who have come both far and near to say this is our own way of celebrating a man who touched many lives. Like I said, Yobix will be back very, very soon on the bandstand. If you need anything, just beckon to all our hostesses, and definitely you will receive the attention with utmost jiffy, talking about speed. One more time, thank you very much. I remain yours sincerely, Pastor Dr. Dusumu. People call me PDD. When it comes to reportage and you don't pass through the tutelage of the man we're celebrating today, definitely you still need to go back to the classrooms. And when we talk about those icons, the man we're celebrating today, late Sir Olujare Dada, will be one of them. He has so many nicknames that we call him while in the course of his duty, but one that I readily remember from time to time is Jairus, oh Jairus. And when you call him that, he's motivated, he's energized. There is a kind of strength that comes on him and then will spur you on. One who will always encourage you to go for the best in life. One that you will learn so many things from if you are indeed very, very cautious. So many things we can talk about the man we are celebrating today. His humility is one that you cannot just shove away like that. When it comes to service to God, definitely is always there to ensure that his communication line with his Creator was never broken. The lives that he lived, the lives that he touched, and so many other in the professional career and line will surely miss him. And today we say thank you, late Sir Chief Jare Dada, for a wonderful life that you have lived. Of course, the likes of Oloweyo, Wene Abewene, our own Dr. Bumi Ayelabe will never forget Chief Jare Dada. When we talk about Engineer Tunde Awolano, who also retired as the General Manager of OGBC, he will remember late Chief Jare Dada as a man that was very dutiful, an administrator to the core, who indeed ensured that everyone was carried along and everyone operated in their own line of action. And so we will be beckoning on the Yobix band. They will be coming back shortly on the bandstand. Once we are able to entertain ourselves in any way that we want, they will be back to indeed bring some melodious tunes, and then those who like to dance for a life that he lived will call them one after the other, especially the children, to celebrate the kind of tutelage that they received from their father, who indeed is resting with the saints triumphant. One more time, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed on behalf of our mother, the loving wife of the man that we celebrate today, Mama Clementina Oluremi Dada. We welcome everyone and we say a very big thank you for honoring this call and for being here personally to be part of this reception program for late Sir Chief Olujare Ebo Dada. We just take some more music while the Yobix band will be preparing, and then we will come to give our own dance of celebration to the kind of life that Chief Jare Dada lived while on planet Earth. I'll return very shortly, and please enjoy yourself. Thank you very much indeed. Inform us as we beckon to the hostesses and the chefs that we have around. We have Amala on the spot for those of us who would like to take that. Amala on the spot comes with the normal abula. ewedu and gbegiri. So if you like to request for that, please, we have that. You can tell the hostesses near you and you will be served. Equally, when it is time for dancing, we will appreciate, for those who will appreciate the children, that there will be a box that will be provided, and we can please kindly drop the form of appreciation that we have for them in that box. Thank you very much indeed.
Good afternoon, everybody. Please, is there a table? If you are sitting at any table and you have not been served, food or drinks, can I see your show of hands, please? A table that has not been served, food is important to us. Everybody is well taken care of. Is there any table that has not been served either food or drinks? Please let us know. Just raise your hand, let me see. Which table? Then you have to go there. Any other table, please? That table. Ushers! Ushers! That one right there? This one? No, yeah, go to mommy. Any other table, please? Food or drinks? Thank you.
dáná ẹ̀dá máa bẹ̀ àti ìṣòro. Owó ọ̀fẹ́ mi. Tọ́jú ẹ̀sì dada. Ọmọ tó bá bàbá jẹ́. Ẹ̀sì ṣèyí ọmọ dada. Tọ́mọtì mọ́rẹ̀ ní ẹgbẹ́. Àwọn dọ́kítọ̀ tún kì í. Ẹ̀yin ti Fortis Collections kò mọ̀ yí pátápátá wà nínú. Ìmọ̀ bá dánwó, ìmọ̀ bá lọ́wọ́, wọ́n fi lò bá dàbí. Má jẹ́ òtó jọ, àwọn aṣọ tó jọ, má bá lu ara mi, má ṣe máa jíjọba. Orí àgbàdá, bóyá lọ́dà, owó lè lè lójijì. Ọ̀dọ̀ tó gbàgbọ́, ọlọ́jà gbàgbọ́, ẹ̀dá gbà bẹ̀rẹ̀ àti ìṣòro. Ṣèyí ọmọ dada olórí ẹbí. Ó tilẹ̀kùn mọ́kẹ́ ní màmá mi. Ó fi kọ́kọ́ rán màmá. Ṣèyí ó tilẹ̀kùn mọ́kẹ́ ní màmá mi. Ó fi kọ́kọ́ rán màmá. Akíjídé ọmọ púpọ̀ ló kọ́ tọ́jú dájọ́ tọ́jú tọ́pá gbogbo Amẹ́ríkà kọ́pẹ́tọ̀ tọ́jú ayaba tó ní tọ́pá ayabé lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ tọ́jú chief mrs busola jerry tọ́jú nicholas adébáyọ̀ ó tilẹ̀ kọ́ ọ́n bẹ́ẹ̀ ní mọ́mọ́ ní òfin wọn kọ́ ọ́n bá wọn wọ independence ó tilẹ̀ kọ́ ọ́n ní ọ̀rọ̀ yìí òfin wọn kọ́ ọ́n bá wọn. Gbogbo ológun family. Ó ti lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ ọ̀gá mi màmá ní Zambia, ó fi kọ́kọ́ rọ̀gbọ̀ mọ́. Ó ti lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ ọ̀gá mi màmá ní Zambia. I want to know, I want to know, I want to know. I want to know, I want to know, I want to know. Àdéhùn bá darí àwọn tó darí lásán àwọn tí wọ́n bá ti lọ. Àdéhùn bá darí àwọn tó darí lásán àwọn tí wọ́n bá ti lọ. Èyí ni wọ́n ní ìkọ̀lẹ́ lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ orí ìdájí ìdájí lọ. Àti sára bá yìí wá ní ẹgbẹ́ lọ́wọ́. Bye. connections. Ayé gbogbo ọ̀tá tó kù tó yóò bí ti já. Ayé gbogbo ọ̀tá tó kù tó ti kọ́ sẹ́yìn. Ọdún rẹ̀ kú ní ajé. Gbogbo excellent men pátápátá. Tọ́jú Moses Agbọ́dádé. Tọ́jú Òdò Ìwúrò. Michael Okoro Ìgbòho. Tọ́jú lọ́lọ́wọ́ bá rẹ̀. Tọ́jú Bíṣù Àbátọ́jú. Láti tọ́jú Dáṣọ. Láti tọ́jú Ìmọ̀lẹ́. Láti tọ́jú Bàbá Wòlé. wọ́n ní ọmọdé oṣù kó súnmọ́ wá níbí àwọn ọ̀dọ́ mùsùlùmí máa bá lọ ní bàbá bọ̀ Everybody say,
Thank you, Yobix. Àròjọ́ Musoloko gẹ́gẹ́ bí Yobix ṣe sọ. Bí onírèsé ò bá fi gbámọ́, èyí tó fi sílẹ̀ wọ́n ní kò ní parun. Lẹ́ẹ̀kan sí adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gbogbo wa láti gúúsù, ìlà oòrùn, ìwọ̀ oòrùn àti àríwá tí a ti wá ṣe ayẹyẹ ìkẹyìn fún bàbá wa Sir Olóyè Olújàre Ẹ̀bùn Dàda. Adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gbogbo wa fún ìfẹ́ tí ẹ ní sí gbogbo ẹbí Dàda àti Kúpolúyè ní àpapọ̀. Gbogbo àwọn ọmọ mo mọ̀ pé wọ́n mójútó àwọn àlejò wọn lọ́wọ́, ṣùgbọ́n bí a ti máa ń ṣe ní ilẹ̀ Yorùbá wípé a máa ń mọ rírì iṣẹ́ tí àwọn òbí tí wọ́n ṣe lórí ọmọ, pàápàá tí Ọlọ́run bá fún wọn ní àǹfààní láti dàgbà kí wọ́n dógbó bíi bàbá wa Jàre Dàda. A ní bí a ṣe máa ń ṣe ayẹyẹ ìkẹyìn, bí a ṣe máa ń jó láti dúpẹ́ fún ìgbé ayé rere tí wọ́n gbé. Màá fẹ́ ká tètè kàn sí àwọn Yobix torí pé àárí ọjọ́ múso ní oko. A fẹ́ jó ijó ayọ̀ yẹn kí gbogbo àwọn ará ọ̀rẹ́ àti ojúlùmọ̀ kí wọ́n tó padà sí gbogbo ibi tí a ti wá. Ní orúkọ màmá wa Clementina Dàda, aya bàbá tó jẹ́ pé àgbẹ̀yìn tẹ́ ìṣe fún wọn lónìí fún ìgbé ayé tí wọ́n gbé, a kí gbogbo wa pé ẹ ṣeun lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀. Olórí ẹbí ló máa kọ́kọ́ ṣíde ijó gẹ́gẹ́ bí a ti ṣe mọ̀. Wọ́n ní ibi tá a bá pè lórí àlè fi tẹ̀lẹ̀ láíláí. Torí náà mo mọ̀ pé ṣèyí ti ń gbáradì pẹ̀lú gbogbo àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ tí mo ti rí káàkiri wípé a máa jó ijó yìí ní ọ̀nà ọ̀tọ̀, ní ọ̀nà àrà láti dúpẹ́ fún ìgbé ayé tí bàbá gbé. Torí bàbá ló ní kó máa bọ̀ kó kọ́kọ́ jẹ́ ẹni tí ó kọ́kọ́ ṣínà ní ìdílé Jàre Dàda. Bàbá tí gbogbo wa péjú pésẹ̀ sí bí lónìí láti ṣe ayẹyẹ ìkẹyìn fún wọn. Adúpẹ́ gèdè ní ọwọ́ gbogbo wa. Màmá ní kí n dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gbogbo ọmọ ẹgbẹ́ Abẹ́òkúta Sports Club. Ẹgbẹ̀yìn tẹ́ ń ṣe ní tòótọ́. Wọ́n ní ẹni tó bá ṣojú tó tún ṣẹ̀yìn òun ló yẹ ká kí wípé ó ṣe iṣẹ́ takuntakun. Màmá Clementina ní kí n dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gbogbo ọmọ ẹgbẹ́ Abẹ́òkúta Sports Club pé ní tòótọ́ ẹgbẹ̀yìn tẹ́ ń ṣe. Gbogbo ọmọ ẹgbẹ́ Almond Club náà pátápátá wọ́n ní ká dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ yín nítorí pé ẹ mọ rírì iṣẹ́ takuntakun tí bàbá wa olóògbé Jàre Dàda tí wọ́n ṣe ní àárín wa. Gbogbo òṣìṣẹ́, àwọn tó ti fẹ̀yìntì àtàwọn tó ṣì wà ń bẹ̀ lọ́wọ́lọ́wọ́ báyìí ní OGBC Ògùn rédíò ní OGTV The People's Tele ní o. Màmá ní ká dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ yín nítorí pé gbogbo èso tí bàbá Jàre Dàda gbè sílẹ̀ ẹ jẹ́ ó parun. Ẹ rí i pé ẹ gbárùkù tì wọ́n, ẹ sì rí i pé gbogbo ohun tí wọ́n ṣe náà ní ìlànà ìgbóhùnsáfẹ́fẹ́ òun náà ni ẹ̀ ń jẹ́ kó máa gòkè àgbà, ó sì ń gbẹ̀rẹ̀gẹ̀ jígẹ̀ sí lójoojúmọ́. Gbogbo àwọn tí wọ́n bá olóògbé Jàre Dàda ṣiṣẹ́ òun náà ni wọ́n ṣe ń sọ títí di òní wípé iṣẹ́ takuntakun òun náà ni bàbá yìí ni wọ́n ṣe. Ó jẹ́ onírẹ̀lẹ̀ ní tòótọ́, wọ́n jẹ́ akíkanjú nínú iṣẹ́ akọ̀ròyìn, wọ́n sì jẹ́ ẹnìkan gbòógì tó jẹ́ pé wọ́n fẹ́ kí ìfẹ́ àti ìṣọ̀kan kó máa wà ní gbogbo ibi tí wọ́n bá ti dé ní agbègbè wọn. Wọ́n ṣe wọ́n sẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ torí pé wọ́n kó ipa pàtàkì láti sí ìdàgbàsókè agbègbè àti gbogbo ibi tí wọ́n bá wà. Pàápàá jùlọ nígbà tá a tún fún wọn ní oyè, èyí fi ẹ̀mí ìmoore hàn láti mọ rírì iṣẹ́ takuntakun tí wọ́n ṣe. Torí náà a dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gbogbo wa pátápátá láti ilé látoko, láti àríwá àti gbogbo ibi tí a ti wá láti wá ṣe ẹ̀yẹ ìkẹyìn fún bàbá wa olóògbé Olóyè Jàre Dàda. A dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gbogbo wa. Gbogbo àwọn akọ̀wé àgbà tí wọ́n ti fẹ̀yìntì ní ìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn táwọn náà wà ń bí, gbogbo wa la kí. Gbogbo àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ màmá Clementina tó jẹ́ pé a wà lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ wọn digbidigbi táwa náà ta jáde lónìí láti sọ pé a ní dáyédà a wà ní àyíká yín láti rí i pé gbogbo ètò yìí ó lọ mọ̀ràn ẹ ṣé adúpẹ́ gbogbo àwọn tí wọ́n wà ní ojú ètò bá a ṣe ṣe ètò ìjẹmùkẹ́yìn ẹ ṣeun lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ torí pé wọ́n ní ohun tó jẹ àwọn lógún òun náà ní pé gbogbo àwa tá a bá wá síbi ìjẹmùkẹ́yìn lẹ́yìn ìgbà tí a ti ṣe ètò eérú fún eérú tó òun náà ni a padà sílé gẹ́gẹ́ bí a ti ṣe mọ̀ wípé olóògbé olóyè Jàre Dàda bí a bá ń ṣe irú ìnáwó báyìí wọ́n máa ń fẹ́ kó jẹ́ pé gbogbo àwọn tí wọ́n bá wá òun ni wọ́n tẹ́ lọ́rùn ìgbà tí wọ́n sì ti papòdà yìí wọ́n fẹ́ kó jẹ́ pé ohun tí bàbá fi lélẹ̀ òun náà ni wọ́n gùn lé òun náà ni wọ́n tẹ̀lé kí gbogbo wa kí a gbádùn kí a sì jẹ oúnjẹ tó gbámúṣé gbogbo àwa tí a bá wà níbí mo sọ lẹ́ẹ̀kan mo ní àmàlà on the spot wà àwa tá a bá mọ̀ nípa gbẹ̀gìrì àti ewédú àbùlà ó wà bó bá jẹ́ yẹn ni ẹ béèrè fún àwa tá a bá fẹ́ iyán ó wà pẹ̀lú ẹ̀gúsí rírò tàbí ọbẹ̀ ẹ̀fọ́ àwa tó bá jẹ́ pé ìrẹsì náà la fẹ́ a ní fried rice a ní jollof rice a ní coconut rice ẹ béèrè fún tẹ́ ẹ bá fẹ́ bó sì jẹ́ Chinese rice náà ni ó wà ní bíbà nítorí pé bàbá tí à ń gbẹ̀yìn tẹ́yìn ṣe fún lónìí wọn ò ṣọ́kú ní kékeré Ọlọ́run fún wọn ní àǹfààní láti dàgbà wọ́n ṣiṣẹ́ ìjọba wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ láti ibi akọ̀ròyìn ṣùgbọ́n wọ́n gúnlẹ̀ sí olórí àgbà pátá fún iléeṣẹ́ móhùnmáwòrán tí gbogbo wa mọ̀ sí OGTV ní ìlú Abẹ́òkúta níbí lẹ́yìn ìgbà tó tún fẹ̀yìntì tán ìjọba tún ní alága ìgbìmọ̀ tó ń ṣe àkóso ti iléeṣẹ́ rédíò Ògùn rédíò èyí náà ní kẹtù wá jẹ́ alága ẹ̀ bàbá tó kó ipa ribi èyí fi wá hàn wá wípé bàbá ń sọ̀rọ̀ nípa ìgbóhùnsáfẹ́fẹ́ ó wà nínú ẹ̀jẹ̀ bàbá ni láti kékeré Ọlọ́run sì gbà fún wọn wípé wọ́n láàmì làkà láti ibẹ̀ wọ́n lọ fún àwọn ẹ̀kọ́ lóríṣiríṣi ní orílẹ̀-èdè wa níbí àti ní orílẹ̀-èdè òkè òkun èyí fi hàn wá wípé gbogbo ìrírí wọn òun náà ni wọ́n gbé padà bọ̀ wá sí ilé tí a fi rí i pé àwọn ìgbóhùnsáfẹ́fẹ́ wa méjèèjì ní ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn níbí òun náà ni wọ́n ń ṣe dáadáa mo wá wo sàkó wípé tá a bá sọ̀rọ̀ nípa àwọn akọ̀ròyìn tá a bá sọ̀rọ̀ nípa àwọn agbóhùnsáfẹ́fẹ́ ó di dandan wípé a gbọ́dọ̀ pé Ògùn rédíò ibi tí bàbá wa olóògbé olóyè Jàre Dàda tí wọ́n ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ iṣẹ́ wọn. There is hardly any known professionals in the broadcast industry that we will mention today that never passed through OGBC. And that means that OGBC has become the foundation where many of our erstwhile broadcasters had actually to pass through because of the formation, because of the tutelage, and because of the experience that you gather anytime you come to that broadcast industry. And so we say a very big thank you for inculcating discipline in the broadcast world. We thank you so much for professionalism, which we always put at the forefront. And we thank you for believing in anyone that you have come in contact with over the years while you practice as a broadcaster, as a journalist, as a mentor, and of course as an administrator. That's why we say thank you very much. Adieu, sleep well, and rest with the saints eternal. Our own late Sir Chief Olujare Ebu Dada. Thank you very, very much. From the entire members of the Cathedral Methodists, thank you so much for giving your very best to the advancement of the kingdom. Wọ́n fi ń tó mi létí wípé èèyàn kan lọ sí ilé kékeré ibi tá à ń pè ní ilé ìgbọ̀nsẹ̀ bóyá ibi tó ti ń fún sárí bí àwọn Ọ̀yọ́ ṣe máa ń ṣe olóògbàgbé ẹ̀rọ gáàsì mi létí ẹ̀ síbẹ̀ ẹni tó bá lọ ọbẹ̀ tó dàbí ẹni pé ó gbàgbé bóyá ibi tó ti ń fọwọ́ ló fi lérí ibi tó ti ń fọwọ́ bó bá jẹ́ ìrìn tẹ̀ ń wá ẹ kàn sí ni níbí pẹ̀lú ẹ̀rí tó dájú ó lẹ́ fi gbà á. Irú fóònù wo ni màmá? Infinix àbí Infinix méjèèjì ṣé ẹ mọ fóònù nọ́mbà yín lórí? ẹ jẹ́ ń pè é tó bá ti dún ajẹ́pẹ́ yín lẹ ní ṣùgbọ́n tí ò bá ti dún ajẹ́pẹ́ kì í ṣe titi yín. ẹ jẹ́ á bẹ̀rẹ̀ báyìí ẹ jẹ́ á bẹ̀rẹ̀ ara tí bàbá Jàre Dàda kọ́ wa rèé o pé kílẹ̀ wí àwọn ni wọ́n ẹ jẹ́ kó pé fóònù nọ́mbà wọn èmi á pè láti bí ẹ̀yẹ má wọ̀rí tó bá ti dún màá fún wọn ẹ fọkàn balẹ̀ transparency that's what late Chief Jare Dada stood for. Ó yá màmá 070 34 20 56 55 ẹ ṣe nọ́mbà yín nìyẹn mo ti ń pè é tó bá dún ẹ̀yin lẹ́ni ṣùgbọ́n tí ò bá dún ẹ̀yin kọ́ lẹ́ni line busy ló ń sọ o ẹ̀jẹ̀ tó mi lè fi hàn yín mẹ́ẹ̀ àìfà àṣírí ìdánwò ọmọ béèyàn jẹ́ tíṣà kó jẹ́ pé ó ń kọ́ ọmọ ẹ̀ ní skul tó bá máa set question kò ní jẹ́ ó mọ̀ bá a ṣe máa ń ṣe ó nìyẹn. kò sí ń pípa kò dùn màmá kò dùn mi lè fi hàn yín mọ́ mi lè fi hàn yín èyí tí màá fi mọ̀ pé ilẹ̀ ni fóònù tá a fún mi tí n bá ti pe nọ́mbà wọn tó bá ti dún jáde tá a fi lè mọ̀ náà nìyẹn kò sí ń pípa ó wà lọ́wọ́ mi kò sí ń pípa ẹ pe nọ́mbà yẹn wọ́n ti fún mi nọ́mbà èmi ń pè ń bí ṣùgbọ́n kò dún wọlé dẹ̀ pa fóònù yẹn mọ́ mi n tó ṣẹlẹ̀ nìyẹn ẹ já continue láti máa try tó bá ti dún wọlé lọ́dọ̀ tèmi kò sí problem àní tó bá ti dún wọlé mọ́ mi tó bá ti dún wọlé àbí wọ́n ní kí n jẹ́ káwọn wò ó mi lè jẹ́ kó wò ó torí tí n bá ní òní tó bá lóòní tí ì sì ṣàwọn náà ní MC ni wọ́n mọ̀ lé káàkiri wípé MC gba fóònù ọ̀tọ̀ lẹ́ni tó fún fóònù orúkọ tèmi náà ó dẹ̀ wà at stake and as a pastor I must be seen to be free and to be fair and to be equitable to all. So that's how we're going to do it. Once we call that number and it rings through, definitely we will be sure that you are the owner of that phone. So let's keep calling that number. If it is yours, it will ring out. It's not switched off at all. And we will progress. One more time, we want to say thank you very much to every one of us present here today. We appreciate your physical presence here, and we thank you for honoring our late broadcast icon. We also refer to him as the iconic seven, one of the iconic seven that midwifed Ogun State Television, OGTV. When he came from the WNTV, WNBC, to be part of those that will start off Ogun Radio, never did he know that he was going to transverse to OGTV as well. And because of his meritorious service in OGBC, it was indeed very, very difficult. But once it is for the advancement of the broadcast industry, we must release him. We want to celebrate the immediate past general manager of the Ogun State Broadcasting Corporation, who just retired in the course of this week. We call her T.S. Toyi Shobeso. Congratulations on your retirement, and it is our prayer that your next line of action will also be a successful one. Thank you, and thank you very, very much indeed. Feel free to call on any of our hostesses around you, and you'll be served any of your requests. We're just here to unwind. We're here to indeed have a nice time. Have a nice time because late Chief Jare Dada lived an exemplary life. And anywhere when it comes to social, the late Sir Chief Jare Dada will always give his best and will be there to say, I identify with you. Thank you very much indeed. Yobix Bank, are we set now? Just for a few more minutes. Sheyi, I I want you to be getting ready because you open the dance floor for us. Your friends, your colleagues, your loved ones, wherever they are, just make sure that you prepare them so that they come and rejoice with you and celebrate with you for an exemplary life that your dad actually lived. I said earlier on, we're celebrating her husband, one very loving. We're celebrating a father, one who indeed laid a solid foundation for the children to build on. We're celebrating a grandfather, one that will always find time to unwind even with the grandchildren. And we're celebrating a man who actually contributed his own quota to the religious circle, especially with the Methodist Church. And we say thank you very, very much, as you were duly rewarded before breathing your last as a knight of John Wesley with Methodist Church. Thank you, and thank you very, very much indeed. Late Chief Jared Dada believed that anything you do, it must be with excellence, and that's what broadcasting is all about. Once you are in doubt, just leave out. But once he gives you an assignment, he will always monitor you that you deliver, and you deliver promptly, right on time. We thank you for this wonderful example that you've laid. We build on it, and we are still building on it, even in the broadcast industry. And we hope and pray that we will pass it to the generation that's coming even after us. One more time, we thank you very much indeed, and we welcome the Yobix Band back on stage, as we want Sheyi to be coming much more closer now. Once the music is on, we will invite Sheyi to the dance floor here to kick off